Hey everybody, welcome back to Conquer the Cave. That's right, we have returned. Doa and Charmer, you've been unfrozen from Carbonite again. I was worried about you. What was it like in the Carbonite? Was it cold?
It was cold and painful. I
Uh-huh.
actually just realized that I still have my flip. It's gonna, hey, there we
Oh,
go.
there you go.
You
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
from
wow.
the time spent.
They give you that for
Uh,
hibernation
y-
sickness, I heard.
yeah, they put
Yeah.
me in carbonite so that I would hold still for the MRI. That's the story I'm going with.
There you go. All right. Well, that's convenient. I mean, we want to make sure nothing has been frozen on the inside. Remains, sometimes,
Yeah,
when you're thawing something, when you're defrosting it, sometimes the part in the middle doesn't quite get finished. So it's important to look inside and see what's up with that. Yeah.
I yeah I agree.
I could be a doctor, but not like a Dr. Evanson or a Dr. Gorst. I'm talking like a good doctor. Are you caught up on
Fair.
Andor, by the way? We're not going to talk spoilers, don't worry, but are you caught up on
I'm
Andor?
not caught up
Okay. It's so
because
good.
I'm
It's
not
so
through
good.
the second drop 4 through 6. I'm not
Oh,
through
okay.
that yet.
I just watched it last night. But anyway, I digress. We are here for some Star Wars Unlimited competition, Doa and Charmer with you, as you can see. And let's just jump right into the deck list. We have our re-returning, re-champion, re-conqueror of the cave, Davy Jones, taking on none other than longtime Discord and Wampa lightsaber Larry. So let's look at the decks. I'm excited about this one, Charmer, because we have none other than Darth Vader JTL style, Pilot Darth Vader,
Yes.
red from Davy Jones. And so here's this list. I think as far as I'm concerned, it's fairly standard for what we've been seeing red Vader lists do, although I will say there's a lot of stuff being experimented with. I think the big things that kind of surprised me a little bit are the addition of the stay on target. I think that is a good card, but sometimes you just want to be playing more units, right? So I always worry when you've got like daring raid and shoot down and stay on target that you're just getting a little bit heavy in the event side and merciless contests in the main board too. That you lose a little bit as far as like being able to replenish your ships fast. So I won't prejudge too much because, again, I think there's a lot of experimentation that needs to be done with Vader jump to light speed. But those are just my little concerns coming into this one. But they could very well end up being unfounded. What do you think?
I actually think that I agree. I personally, like you, I like to make sure that I have a board presence with Vader in particular because you want to make
Yeah.
sure that you are attacking so that you get your trigger. I will say I love the inclusion of the ambush ship. That was something that I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
experiment with a control version of Vader where you were running a large number of ambush units, specifically ambush vehicles, because they guarantee you get your Vader trigger. And so if you just do that over time, you could get like a war of attrition going in your favor. But I do like that inclusion. I guess if anything, I'm more surprised that the stay on targets are in the main deck. I just am a big fan of Daring Raid because it's so versatile. Sometimes
Yeah.
that extra base damage is all you need. But I'm not going to judge it either. I don't have nearly enough reps on Vader. The vehicle oriented leader that I've been playing the most so far has been Poe.
Me
So
too,
we'll have
actually.
to wait and see.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Poe lately. I think he's really good, especially now that we have Django out of the way. I think that opens things up a lot, and Poe is going to be one of the ones to primarily capitalize on that. Although we did see a lot of Vader 4 do pretty well in Richmond just last weekend here. I'm looking
Yes.
for the name of that ambush ship because it's on the tip. Eagle Escort Fighter. That's the one. It's not full screened on my side of things, so it's a little bit too small to read. So I had to open it
Yeah.
up in SWDB here. But anyway, let's take a look at the other list. Our challenger, Lightsaber Larry, will be bringing Leia Organa, his new version of Leia with a Spice Mine. So we have two green leaders with two red bases and Heroes and Villainy. So this is quite the, I would say, a little bit of a lore matchup in the Vader Leia matchup as well. But this is an interesting list. Lots of two ofs, which I think Lightsaber Larry, it seems like he does prefer a lot of those in the decks. But you see a lot of standard Rebel fare. Anything jump out at you with this one?
Yeah, I think for me the biggest thing that jumps out is actually the home one, and to some degree even the Ewing reinforcement on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Ewing, I'm not a I don't want to say that I don't like the card. I just think that it is something that would make sense for me in a sideboard, and then you'd bring it in against slower decks. Whereas
Sure.
with this, much like with what we were just saying with Veda, I think what you want is to make sure you're always playing units and having that expensive card. While it does do the thing, it plays units, it's something that you're doing far later in the game. So if that were, that in the home one, for example, were just more Lukes. I'm a big fan of the new Luke Skywalker, the one that you play as an upgrade and it can jump to the ground.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I think I would feel a little bit better. I'm also, when you have this many rebels, I'll be honest, I am a hard General Dodonna truther, so I'm happy there's at least 2 copies, but I'd love to see that be a third.
I can't argue
because
with that.
it messes with so much math. A lot of times, now granted, I played him mostly in Sabine, so it has far more relevance there, but a lot of times when you play him on 4 is the turn when a lot of folks are looking to play cards like Takedown or other things that are going to care about health, and then that forces you to remove Dodonna as opposed to the other unit. In Sabine's case, going from 5 to 6 means Takedown doesn't work on her. You're forced into targeting Dodonna.
Right.
But even in Leia here, I think there's a lot of value. So those are the things that jump out. I don't hate the inclusion of the big cost cards. I just think that they would be maybe something in the sideboard and then you would bring in for slower decks. It does feel like the meta is very aggressive and or mid-rangey right now, whether it is the new Vader. I've seen a lot of Quinlan, a lot of Sabine, etc. popping up. And so I just question how often the games are going to last long enough to play those cards.
Yeah, I'm curious how often we're going to get to see the Leia ability work too, where you get to attack with an extra rebel unit. I think it's going to have to be a ground-based plan from Larry here in these matchups, despite the fact that he's got a good amount of space here too. But we'll find out, I guess. I think I'm ready to jump in the game. How about you?
I am definitely ready to jump in.
All right, let's do it. Jumping into game number 1 between Lightsaber Larry on the left side of your screen and then Davy Jones on the right side. Lightsaber Larry on the Leia with the generic red base. Davy Jones on the Vader from set 4 with the generic red base as well. We see players doing a little bit of resourcing here as they get ready to start off with things. It looks like maybe Larry has the initiative since we have that token prominently displayed on his side of the board, although we'll have to see who decides to make the first play. But this one should be explosive. I'm not anticipating this to be a terribly long match.
Yeah, I think it will kind of depend on whether these players are somebody who cares about controlling one of their particular lanes or particular fields. So what I mean by that is that if you're the Vader player and you don't see many space units being played by Larry early, then you might take some trades just so that you can protect your ships for the long run. But
sure.
Right now, for example, we see the A-Wing leading off, so perhaps this is going to be one of those things where you just go straight into the race mode, make them kind of play defense. It really is going to be one of those things where you have to feel out whether it's worth it for you to do something. I do think Bright Hope is another card that we're going to be paying attention to, and I love this. It looks like we're going to see these shoot down.
I think that's a great start. And you may say, well, it's nice to play a ship with Vader. You want to be able to get that leader ability online where when you attack with a non-token vehicle, you can generate a tie token from Vader's leader card. But this kind of accomplishes what you want to do with the deck anyway, right? You're removing a threat, but you're also doing damage to the base by virtue of shoot down. If it kills the unit, it does 2 damage to the owner's base. So I think that's a fine way to start off with here. I do wonder about the late game kind of power of the green side of things, the green Vader side of things, just because red tends to be the most aggressive flavor of this leader. And so, you don't really have a huge late game plan here. That said, Vader, if you get him on anything as a pilot, is going to be gigantic and very hard to remove for a player without access to direct removal from like blue or something. So that may just be the game plan. But we'll see. It might be hard for both these players to get anything to stick on board.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to highlight about that kind of turn 1 exchange as well is that with the A-Wing coming down, the reason I love that play from Davey as opposed to playing a unit is because Larry was likely to have the initiative. And when you have the initiative and you have an A-Wing, anything Davey plays on that turn 1 is likely going to be eaten. And then you never get to attack and thus never get to trigger your Vader anyway. So it kind of would have just been a lost cause stalling tactic to play a unit, whereas the shoot down does at least generate some additional pressure on the base while stalling. So in doing so, now look at all these units that are being played, right? Any of these that were played by Davey could have been traded into by that A-Wing cleanly, and now they have complete control of the air.
Yeah, and you get good value with things like the crackshot V-wing in decks like Davy Jones, right? Where that's the one where when played, if you don't control another fighter unit, it takes a damage. In this case, very easy to just play the one-cost Kajimi Patrollers, get nothing out there. That's kind of your ideal turn one with this deck if you can go Kajimi Patrollers into crackshot V-wing. Or never mind, that's your ideal turn two. Kajimi is two resources. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
But either way, pretty ideal turn here. It's going to be damage coming in from the Battlefield Marine. What else can you do, right? But at least you've got this big presence in space, and now I feel like you're going to have this opportunity as a Vader play to get the TIE tokens rolling, to get value from things like Tarkin if you run it, things like the clone combat squadron that gets buffed by virtue of how many vehicles are out there. So the damage is going to be coming in pretty fast for both these players right now. 3 from the Marine on Larry's side.
Yeah, I do think the bit that might make or break this matchup is actually the combo potential of Leia. So if we get into a situation and it looks like we're headed down that path where one player is playing, strictly to the space or mostly to the space, the other player has control of the ground. When you get into these race scenarios, having the initiative and then specifically having the ability to swing with multiple units like Leia allows could end up putting Davy in a position where they might have to take initiative, even if they've got, like, let's say 10 TIE fighter tokens, right? If they are just dead, if they attack with all of the TIE fighter tokens to Lightsaber Larry taking the initiative, that will be something to pay attention to.
For sure.
So there's a situation where Davy, despite having more units, might not be able to use them all.
That is a concern, right? And I'm also a little bit concerned about this Biggs being played on the ground here too, because that seems to indicate that Larry didn't have a better play, and that's a little bit rough if all you're doing with your turn is playing a vanilla 3/4 on the ground. I mean, sure, that's going to be another 3 damage swing potentially next turn, and 6 damage total on the ground right now is no joke, but you're looking for those synergies, like you said. You're looking for like the Battlefield the Fleet Lieutenant or something, right? So you can swing in right away with the Battlefield Marine. But you talked about the usefulness of that Leia ability. I think that's going to come in spades starting next turn for Larry.
Yeah, ideally the play you really want there is the K2SO, right? You're on resource turn 4. It's just a ton of pressure, but Biggs, as you said, it does signal you might not have a better play. I'd love to see what's in the hand, because this could be one of those situations where maybe it is the U-wing or the home one that's kind of clogging things up.
You'd think that would be also resourced, right? So I wonder if
I mean, you would think, but there was 2 of each of them, and sometimes you can't resource them fast enough when that's what you're drawing. I've definitely run into that situation myself.
That is true.
But the other thing that this is signaling very clearly, right, to Davy, if I'm on Davy's side, I'm saying, okay, if he's playing Biggs on the ground, this means there is no plan to contest space going forward unless it's something like a Bright Hope. Mm-hmm. So this is free reign. Like, we are in the race mode from this point on.
It certainly feels that way. And so now I'm very kind of curious. Look at that. All right. Tank coming out. We've got the Heavy Persuader tank with the Exploit 2, and this is one of those really nice usefulnesses of these TIE tokens is, you've got a ton of attacks, whatever, but if you don't have a way to buff everything, like the Victor Leader or, a Tarkin maybe or something, you can use the Exploit to play this, and then this lets you do a little bit of damage to a ground unit. It's only 2 damage, doesn't take anything out, but you're going to be pretty happy with that 6/5 on the board. And, this is another thing that you can possibly deploy Vader on, too, which really is going to eat up a lot of those ground units, potentially.
Absolutely. This is just really interesting, because I thought for sure we were going to see Davy Jones just go straight to the air race, but perhaps Davy has settled on the same thing I did, which is in a straight race scenario, Leia might be slightly favored when you're getting toward the finish line. So if you've got air presence, and then you can just take some trades or force some less than ideal situations on the ground as disruption, maybe that's how you jump ahead.
Yeah, I think that's totally possible. Like I said, I'm just imagining this scenario where suddenly you've got this massive, massive unit on the ground. When Vader jumps onto it, it's going to be like an 11-10. But and obviously Vader doesn't flip onto that until resource turn 6. So we've got a minute before we get there. But if it does happen, sure, it'll be taken out eventually, but that will soak up a lot of units. It could go 3 for 1, right? 4 for 1 even sometimes. And like you said, when you still have that presence in the air, that's going to really give you a decent advantage. So I'm very curious where exactly the line of play is going to go from Davy Jones here. It depends on what's in the hand, of course, but we'll see. Meanwhile, on the Larry side of things, I'm trying to just barely read what's in the hand, but I can't quite get a glimpse of it right now. But here's one of the moments where it's like, okay, do I run both these units into this tank? Nah, you really can't. You really, I feel like, have to go to base. But it's a question I'm sure Larry's thinking about.
Well, the other thing that happens here, and this is why, again, Davey just masterful pilot, and knowing the timing, knowing the situation. This is a situation where Leia has to deploy to the ground. Doesn't have the flexibility, excuse me, that the Vader leader has.
Ooh.
So that means if Lightsaber Larry wants to deploy their leader, they have to wait for that tank to attack or complete an action. Otherwise, it's just going to immediately die to the tank. So you either have to attack into it, or in this case, just use the Rebel Assault, get your damage in, maybe entice Davey to then take a trade with one of those as you try to stall. But that is the other real issue here, right? That tank represented a way to just immediately trade with the leader and survive.
Yeah. Now, the big danger here, oh, nice prestige, Victor Leader. Love seeing that coming down because that's going to buff everything on the board by +1/+1, including that vehicle on the ground because it does buff vehicle units specifically. So that is going to be cool. But I think the big scary thing in my mind, it's space unit. I'm sorry, it doesn't buff the vehicle on the ground. I forgot. Victor Leader is just space units. But anyway, the big scary thing, I think, is that if you choose not to trade, you become very vulnerable to an overwhelming barrage, which every Villainy Green deck has. So that's always something you got to keep in the back of your mind too is, all right, I know he's not going to do it this turn, but, are we going to get to a point where I've attacked into base enough, suddenly he just wipes the board with a giant overwhelming barrage, and then I've got nothing, and he's got a huge, huge swing, and he can just end it in 2 swings, right?
Absolutely. So that is threatening both the barrage as well as the immediate leader trade.
Mm-hmm.
Really curious to see how Lightsaber Larry navigates this. It does look like they've got at least one space unit in hand, but it looks like it might be what is it, the blue unit that can ambush and then move to the ground, and that might be what the consideration is here.
Oh, blue leader, yeah. Yep. Blue leader is at 3/3 ambush in the air, and then you can pay 2 extra and it gets 2 XP and moves to the ground. And it looks like that's exactly what it's going to be. You won't be able to take out the Victor Leader with this, but you can maybe trade with something else.
Yeah, and because the Rebel Assault was played, you also can't move this to the ground either. So this is strictly just trying to, I think, stop damage in the air.
Yeah, because you are going to be able to take something out and then have Blue Leader live. So there is the potential to get another attack in, maybe trade 2 for 1, But yeah, again, I'm just so worried. Oh, never mind. That was a 3/3, wasn't it? Yeah. So he decides to trade into the 3/3. He could have traded into the Kijimi Patrollers and still had that Blue Leader around for another swing next time. He would have taken 1 extra damage, but I personally like being able to go 2 for 1 potentially. But you just never know what the game state's going to be, I suppose. So opting to take out the bigger threat first, even though it is a 1 for 1 trade. And now the onus on Davy Jones to respond here. What do you think? Which one would you have traded with?
Yeah, that's tough. I feel like right now I probably still would have taken the value trade and forced Davy Jones to deal with the remaining space unit. You net take 1 more damage, but the other reason that I think I would want to get rid of the patrollers is on the off chance that Davy Jones has something where he can replay a unit or bounce something to hand or whatever. I would just want it gone off the table because that's got a relatively important when played ability, whereas the other unit is, done its thing.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I just like the 2 for 1. But we're on the same page as far as probably running into the Kijimi Patrollers here. Let's see what else he's got. Armed to the teeth. Oh no. Okay. Well, armed to the teeth is going to come on. That's going to be a nice little buff to the tank there. Thanks
it's a buff to the tank and
and the Kijimi Patrollers.
Yeah, everything else, whatever you decide to apply it to.
Yeah.
That is a problematic unit, and I think maybe now Lightsaber Larry is perhaps wishing they had used that Rebel Assault to trade into the tank. You're certainly not in a position where you can deploy your Leia safely now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
This is the real question, right? Do you deploy your Leia with the intent to soak one of the attacks from this 7 damage tank, or do you take initiative and then take it'd be like 10 damage, 7 from the tank, and then another 4 in the air, so I guess it'd be 11 damage actually. And yeah, he's going to try to bait the attack. I think that's going to be an easy choice from Davy Jones. Going to go in, and yeah, that's going to take the Leia out. Or is he going to go right to base? That'd be a bold move.
I think he might just be going base, and honestly,
right.
I don't hate the move.
Okay.
The deploy of the Leia, it's one of those things where, you know, you can get information from your opponents, right? So the deploy of the Leia says to Davy, hey, Lightsaber Larry doesn't have a great way to stop this thing right now. So it's either this is bait and they want me to attack into Leia, and then they take initiative and they clear it up next turn anyway. Or if you deal the damage to the base and they still wanted that damage on the tank from the Leia for whatever their follow-up is, Leia has to then swing into the tank, then you take initiative and you get 2 attacks on base with that tank either way, right? So the tell of deploying the Leia there was the heads up for Davy to just take advantage and push as much damage as possible. And then when Lightsaber Larry does not attack into the tank with their Leia, that's the signal to Davy to say, okay, I can also attack with the Kijimi. Whereas if Larry had attacked in with the Leia on the tank, I think Davy snaps, takes the initiative, and just gets a second swing with the tank to start the next round.
Well, you know what I kind of think of when I see, Larry or Davy Jones rather go to base with this tank too, is I feel like I'm seeing a situation where he wants to put Vader on that tank, and then he wants to overwhelming barrage, because now you're looking at it'd be 7 plus 5, so 12 plus another 2, so 14 damage overwhelming barrage, and that would just end the game because it would wipe the board.
Maybe, but I'm also I'm just a big fan of like not losing sight of victory, right? So right now there's 17 damage on the base for Lightsaber Larry. Leia's not known for having a ton of healing capability, so if you just take this swing, even before you put the Vader on it, take the swing to put the damage on the base, and then you still have, 3 vehicles in space where you can slap your Vader on, and your opponent has no presence there. That feels like a really safe path to victory.
Yeah, I think either way, I like Davy Jones' chances here.
For sure.
That said, still 15 damage on the base of Davy Jones. Leia can have very, very explosive turns. It just feels like at this point, there's just more damage coming faster from the Davy Jones side of things. Barring any sort of buffs coming from Lightsaber Larry's side.
I think my biggest concern is if I was trying to set up that overwhelming barrage play, on the off chance that they do have some sort of answer for the tank, the last thing you want to do is give them like a massive 3-for-1, right? Like you deploy the Vader, they get to respond. And I don't think that Larry had anything based on the deck list that we saw. But, again, if you're Davy and you don't know maybe what you're running into.
The thing is as we look at the peak of Lightsaber Larry's hand there for just a moment, I saw General Riken in there. So there is a potential to have, maybe Vader gets deployed and then you slam the General Riken, and that just soaks a big attack from the tank. Then you get to attack with everything else to their base. In theory, that might be enough to push through if you get a good initiative too. But I'm kind of grasping at straws a little bit here. But that General Riken might be the key to some tricky plays here for Larry. If you really want to wait to see if the tank gets the Vader first, he's going to go ahead and go for the Leia attack. And do a little bit more damage there to the base. That's going to take Davy Jones up to 19. Or am I not reading that right? That's a lot of ones. I was going to say, 22? There we go. Yep, looks like 22 in total, swapping out the 2 5s for a 10. There you go. All right, so that's 8 damage remaining.
They were just resolving the 2 attacks individually, going 16 to 19, 19 to 22.
Sure. Very thorough. All right, so what's the plan going to be for Davy Jones? You have 8 HP remaining. You're thinking to yourself, all right, what's the most they can do to me with one swing? He's a fleet lieutenant, something like that.
I was going to say, I think you have to take this tank attack.
Yeah, I think so,
because not only is it damage on base, but you're also, again, getting to buff something because of the upgrade, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can diversify the amount of damage in space. So going to buff the Victor leader, which helps to protect it potentially against ambushers.
Mm-hmm.
And then as well as having the Vader deploy on potentially a different ship. Now, if Lightsaber Larry does have anything that stops these space units, they're going to have to stop more than one, which is really kind of putting them in a pickle.
Yeah. I mean, right now there is lethal damage on board for Davy Jones unless Larry is able to come up with a Sentinel in space or some kind of instant healing. That is exactly 8 damage with the buff from the arm to the teeth on the Victor leader for 4, and then a total of 4 from the 2 other ships in the air.
Right. And so saving this Vader deployment is also, I think, really, really important, because if something like a Bright Hope got slammed here, then Vader could go on one of the smaller units to just go through it, and then you'd still have more damage behind it.
Right, exactly. And there's the General Riken. Okay. There's the overwhelming barrage. Yep. All right, so that's going to do a lot of damage. That's going to be more than enough, Davy Jones says. All right, well, I've got, I know all your resources are spent. I've got enough in the air. Let's move on to game number 2. Yep. That's exactly what we're going to do here. Davy Jones takes the lead. Okay, game number 2 here between Lightsaber Larry and Davy Jones. Davy Jones trying to defend his position as the conqueror of the cave at the moment, and he's doing a pretty good job so far. Up 1 game over Lightsaber Larry. These games are fast, but they're so tense, because at any moment a player can pull ahead and damage in a big, big way. And Davy Jones had enough last time, but Lightsaber Larry was not too far off. He had Davy Jones up to 22 damage on base, so we'll see what happens after a little bit of sideboarding as our players figure out their resources here, getting into game number 2.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think, really interesting to see whether or not either player changes their strategy. So we have Lightsaber Larry starting again with an A-Wing. I liked that start before. If it were not for the immediate answer, I think Larry would have had a better shot at trying to keep the sky under control. We are just seeing now the 1 drop played by Davy, so I suspect we're going to see, I was going to say a second following that up. I like this start for both players, but Larry in particular with initiative should be looking to take out at least one of those ships. You won't be able to stop the token from getting generated next turn, but you can slow things down.
Yeah, that's kind of the big thing there. The First Order TIE Fighter, I feel like, is going to be the primary target, just because that's the one that gets buffed by having a token on the board. It gets that raid 1 from that. So we'll see what Lightsaber Larry decides to do, but unless you have some damage from hand, I'd maybe be thinking about swinging the A-Wing into the green ship there here. Thinking about...
Yeah, there's something...
Yeah, what is that in the hand there? Mulling it over. Maybe he's got a trick up his sleeve from the sideboard.
Interesting.
And which one was that? Did you see what that was?
Well, it was not... I think it was something from the sideboard, because it was not the known pilots. It wasn't Biggs.
It was an OP border. I feel silly now. Was it the Chewbacca? Yeah, he paid 3 for it. I think that was the Chewbacca, because that's the only, I'm looking at the list, and that's the only OP border pilot card in his list. So I believe that was the Chewbacca. We'll have to see. 2 damage done by Davy Jones there. And I would imagine he's, with Lightsaber Larry all tapped out, he's going to make the token and then swing with the First Order tie.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
Yeah, that's a big A-Wing now too. That is
it's a big A-Wing, and more importantly, can't be shot down, can't be even really overwhelming barrage. So if you're trying to slowly take control of space, I don't hate this. Again, you can't stop the token from getting generated, but you can take out the other unit. Oh no, just gonna race. Interesting. Okay, not what I was expecting. Should be 1 more damage on the base though, right?
It should. Yeah, that's right. Because Chewbacca is, I believe, is 3/3.
Yes, it is +3/+3.
And so that Green Squadron A-Wing would do 3 on its own as well. So yeah, you are correct. That should be 6 damage on base for Davy Jones here. We'll see if they catch it in a moment here. Oh, the Vader gets played on the First Order TIE Fighter. I turned into Macho Man Randy Savage for a second, like, oh, there's the Vader. But no, that's a big unit. Talk about your other large 3/3s. Well, there's one for Davy Jones's side. So both players with a big ship right now.
Yeah, except one of them also has additional ships.
Yes, that's true. One has more than one ship. Now, this Vader does have on attack, you may deal 1 damage to a unit. If a unit is defeated this way, you may deal 1 damage to a unit or base. So not going to be able to take out the A-Wing with that. Although you've got what? 6? And it does do 6 damage, funny enough. So you could elect to trade here. Or will he race?
Well, the interesting bit, though...
He will race.
Yeah, I was going to say the interesting bit, though, is that you, like, yes, you have the units left over, but you're left with kind of a subpar board yourself.
For sure, yeah. But getting rid of that Chewie, I mean, that is not... I feel like that's not a unit you want to let sit around for very long, you know?
We're going to see if the damage applied here is...
There should be
on this. So
there should be 6 damage coming from.
I think most players are missing 1 damage from raid somehow.
All right, it's a comedy of errors so far here in game number 2 because that should be raid 1 from the First Order TIE Fighter. Let me just double check. Now I'm like second guessing myself, so I'm gonna look. Wait. TIE.
No, I believe you're correct. It should be a 2/1 and a raid 1 when you have a token, and they have a token.
I am definitely correct on that. Yeah, so that should have been 6 damage to the base of Larry, and it should have been 6 damage to the base of Davy Jones. But hey, you know what, Charmer? It all worked out in the end. They both are missing damage, so we're dead even.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see how that becomes relevant later on.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well, at this point, you might as well just think of it as they each had an extra HP on their bases or something, right? Or they each healed 1, We're not really at a, that's so funny though, but we're not really at like
it's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a huge deal, but it is interesting because, when you're playing these potentially aggressive decks, sometimes your margin of victory is razor thin, right?
Totally,
and so one extra health in both directions, potentially a big deal. You know what else is a big deal, though? Bright Hope, a big sentinel dropping down.
Yeah, so now Davy Jones thinks to himself, oh, I can take that out. Oh, there should be an extra damage on base. Will he notice? Because he should be able to one-shot that Bright Hope.
Should be.
See, again, props to our community for being willing to play these webcam games for us and give us all these great entertaining games. And man, in 15 episodes, we have had some very, very entertaining games. But, when you're in that situation, it's like a local, right? You're going to miss things. You're going to be chatting with each other. You're going to be having a good time. And so we do see this happen every once in a while. But we get to joke about it. So it all turns out okay. Victor Leader. Oh, no. Now he's going to think now is when he has exact damage with the First Order TIE.
Right.
Oh, no. Well.
Yeah, this is all definitely interesting. I still feel like the play from Lightsaber Larry here has to be pretty straightforward, though. You have to take out that Victor Leader with your A-Wing, right?
Absolutely. This is one of those cases where I would not recommend racing. I mean, if he's done his math, which he should have done, he knows that Bright Hope is going to die in 1 shot. I do feel like you are obligated to take out that Victor Leader because it represents 3 extra damage coming at you this turn potentially. So now is when you do it.
Yeah, I mean, you do start to get dangerously low, and with those Vader pings,
look at that.
You get close.
Hey, wait, look. He just got an extra damage on his base. Where'd that come from? Did they realize?
Maybe I think he realized the A-Wing one.
The A-Wing one, that's right. Should be 6. And then are we gonna
and then maybe they're talking it through? No?
Are we gonna realize that the other TIE did 1 more damage as well? He's gotta figure it out at some point. All right. And
interesting
trade. Whoa, that is when he decides to do the trade. Very interesting indeed. I guess he's looking at it in a way where he's like, okay, well, if I trade now, it's going to take you multiple hits to take up my Bright Hope. Therefore, I'm going to have more time to establish more bodies on board elsewhere and keep the race going. I think that's the thought process. I'm not going to say if that was the right decision, but I believe that's what the idea was.
Yeah, that at least makes sense to me if that's what you are trying to do. You don't get rid of the victor leader, but you do put Davy in a position where they can't get rid of your Bright Hope, at least with what was on board.
Yeah. And
I
think
all in this turn.
To show a little bit of how the sausage is made commentary wise, I think the majority of what we talk about, is usually, and what we should be talking about is not, was that the right or wrong play? Instead, we should talk about what was the mindset of the player when they made that decision. Why did they choose to do the thing they do? So that's I think that's something to bring up too, is that's the real thing we're trying to get into here. That's the interesting stuff.
Yeah. And there are, pros and cons, right? So if your opponent doesn't have anything else, then this does at least slow down Davy Jones and their ability to get damage on your base. The things that you might, if you're somebody who's making this decision, be concerned about would be with that one resource still available, are they playing any of the other victor cards, which could provide that buff, for example?
Yeah.
Then they would be able to trade. Here we do see Vader making a token. I suspect, just based on this pattern, Lightsaber Larry has already taken the initiative, obviously. So I think Davy is just putting damage on the Bright Hope, getting that trigger, and then might just pass to go to the next round.
Man, I would love it right now if I were Davy Jones and I had like a Wingman Victor 3 in my hand or something like that.
Exactly.
Or even a Victor 2. Just to, and you wouldn't probably still attack. Well, actually, no, you wouldn't in that case, because then that would get rid of the Bright Hope. But just be able to do that, get rid of the Bright Hope, and produce another XP or token. But looks like he doesn't, and we're going to move on to the next round. Resource turn 5 for these two players.
You would attack because with the +1/+1 from the upgrade, your unit would survive as well.
Yep.
Because of Victor 3. So
that's right.
That's what I was saying. That would be the thing that I would have been concerned about. And again, not saying it was wrong, but when you make those plays, what are the pros and cons, right? Based on what was visible to Lightsaber Larry, good job stalling. There was potential for counterplay, but sometimes in card games, you just have to say, if they have it, they have it. And you do the thing anyway.
Right now that Bright Hope is kind of like a leaky dam, preventing the torrent of damage coming from Davy Jones's side of the board in the space arena. So does Lightsaber Larry have a way to shore up the dam, or is he gonna try to create his own flood on the ground potentially? Oh, stay on target with the Bright Hope, and so gonna go into the victor leader. Not gonna get to draw the card from it because he's not gonna damage the base, but that is gonna be nice in terms of getting rid of the source of a lot of buffing.
I just really like the headcanon of seeing Bright Hope, like a ship of that magnitude, doing the stay on target thing, right?
It's a transport, man. What is it thinking? But that's just the scrappiness of the Rebel Alliance, right? You use the tools that you've got and you get the job done.
Rebellions are built on hope. Bright hopes, if you will.
Brightest of hope, yeah. Okay, so over to Davy Jones' side of things again.
And the interesting bit here is that Davy Jones now, with just the tokens there, might need something like one of those ambush units to get the Vader trigger. Right. Or they might have to take a turn off and reestablish. But this is, again, why I love that card. So I think I see one in hand as well. That would line up beautifully here because it would trade with the Bright Hope and still allow you to turn Vader sideways.
Yeah. Yeah, remember, with Vader, you have to attack with a non-token vehicle unit to be able to activate his leader ability. And he's just going to go in. Wow, one of the Bright Hope. And that's going to be enough to take it out. And why not, right? I would sacrifice a token, too, to get rid of that. And you don't spend any resources. You get a glimpse of what your opponent's plan for the turn is. It's going to be a red 5. Yeah, the set 4 red 5. This is the one that does damage to a damaged unit.
Yeah, this is a card that I've become a huge fan of in Quinlan. but this is also very patient play by Davy. By using the token and not just wasting the ambush now, you could ambush this, take the trade, and then still make your token
Yeah.
as well with Vader. It's got to be the at least the consideration here, because you don't want to leave Red 5 out. The 3/4 body alone, even without the trigger, is enough to get a lot of value trades into those tie tokens.
Oh, I noticed our perspective on Larry's side of things is backwards again too. Not Larry's fault, but it's funny how like you don't even really notice until like halfway through the game. But I was like, that Red 5 is facing the wrong direction. It's because the camera's flipped. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Over to Davy Jones' side of things. Opponents all tapped out. Leia could flip. But what will the plan be for Davy Jones? He's got that clone combat squadron in hand, but it only gets +1/+1. Ooh, gonna go with Von Reg's Interceptor.
Okay.
That is a beautiful prestige, by the way.
Yeah, Von Reg definitely knows how to like hot rod their vehicle for sure.
Oh yeah.
The red paint, the good, cool, evil looking accents, exactly what you want if you're, I guess, a member of the First Order. But this is interesting. I wonder if this is a tell that perhaps you're putting Larry in a situation where they're going to deploy Leia, you're going to take initiative. Does look like that's what Davy's doing, and now you can put Vader on the Von Reg as your first action, which will then activate all of the passives on it, right? That becomes a much more scary and impactful presence in space if you've got something like Vader on it. Could have, again, taken the ambush. We saw them thinking about it. But I think that this is also potentially a really impactful play.
Oh yeah, for sure. That ship is going to get extremely scary if Vader gets deployed on it, which I would imagine it will, because with Davy Jones having the initiative, I think in a lot of cases you would just want to deploy Vader first, because Green Red isn't going to have a ton of ways to eliminate a unit with 9 HP just off the rip with 6 resources available. So I'm guessing. I'm going to make a prediction. It's dangerous to make predictions, but that's going to be my guess. And yeah, there's the flip. Okay, and you're going to get the 2 tie tokens out of this as well, but that is a large Von Reg's Interceptor. That is going to be an 8/9, plus it has Raid 1, and it has Overwhelm now. And if he has an overwhelming barrage in his hand, Larry is in for a bad day. We will see.
Yeah, Larry, I think now you almost kind of have to consider whether or not you think your units are long for this world. You might just take the Leia attack and get the damage on base with both of your units, or even just, I don't know, maybe use the Red 5 to clean up a token or something. I don't think that you have any reason that you would ever run it into the Vader. You don't have the direct damage in your list to then follow it up. I will say that is one of the like downfalls to the heroic side. You can run cards like Open Fire and so forth, but you don't have cards like Overwhelming Barrage where you're going to get that additional bonus. Now, this is a beautiful play.
Yeah.
By Lightsaber Larry. So again, if you think your units are not long for this world, push damage, and this is a great way to do so.
Yep, gonna get the Fleet Lieutenant, buff the Leia or the Red 5. Either way, you're gonna get a good amount of damage in there. That's 19 on base now for Davy Jones. But there's the Overwhelming Barrage, and this is exactly what we were just talking about. And this is the classic play, right? For Villainy Command. It has been for the entire life of the game at this point. And that is now a massive, massive ship, and we'll see where he decides to put all the damage. It's going to be 10 damage total to distribute.
I think the safe play is probably to put the damage on Leia and the Lieutenant, because with the Overwhelm and the Raid, you could also then just take the trade of running Von Reg over the Red 5 if you want to clean things up.
Couldn't agree more. Sabine Wren played on the ground there, so 2-3 with some benefits as well. But yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you that you just go for the big Overwhelm here. Let's get rid of the ship in space. Make sure he doesn't do something like play a Chewie on it next turn or something like that, you know? And you're still very, very likely to live for another swing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Then again, it is only 2 damage. That said, he's gonna still do 7 in overwhelm here because that was 1 damage on a 4 health unit, I believe.
Yeah, it is. Might just be going base. If so, then that's a clean 10 damage.
Yeah, I don't hate it, honestly. I mean, you can just use a couple tokens to take out the red 5 as well. But no, yeah, he's gonna just go ahead and go for the overwhelm. I think honestly, there's a lot of merit to either way. You can look at it one way where, okay, I go base and they only come back with 2 damage. You can look at it the other way where it's, okay, I do a lot of overwhelm damage to them, and then I'm already at 19, so I just keep myself a little bit safer. And so going for the safer play, probably the better advised one. And we'll see if it pays off. Another first order TIE fighter. And that's going to get buffed by the tokens too.
And after all of that, I know that the token is still on the board on Davy Jones's side, but Lightsaber Larry clearly has the initiative here because of all of those TIE fighters attacking. I don't think Lightsaber Larry was just passing in between all of those. So we're going to look to see what can Lightsaber Larry do as a play to lead things off and maybe slow down that Von Reg, because if you can't slow it down, you're in danger.
Yeah, that's to say the least. Out of curiosity, I wonder if he's got another Sentinel here. Does he have another Bright Hope? General Riken can't do Sentinel in space. He can't fly.
No,
but if you got that Bright Hope,
not.
Maybe you can do it. Either way, this is why, I think a lot of people really like playing Vader, and it's one of the reasons I like it too, because you get to the point in the game, especially in a lot of these aggro matchups where you get Vader on something, it's just such a big amount of stats, and then that combined with overwhelming barrage is very much, very often, I should say, the only thing you need to swing the game in your favor to a winning position. That's no different than Villainy Command has played again since set 1, but being able to do it in space, being able to do it with all the ships is just extra fun in my opinion.
Yeah, it certainly is
timely,
impactful, but timely. Okay, what is going to be? And this is smuggled, right? We're about to see the
right
heard from the deck come.
There you go. That goes in there. And so you've got 4 remaining. Not enough to play like a Poe or something, which I don't think you see a lot of Poes in this list anyway, but it's going to be another red 5. And that's going to take out a TIE token. And
then it should be putting 2 extra damage on the Von Reg, potentially?
Well, no, because it only damages a damaged unit. So it can't do any damage to the Von Reg right now. Oh, yeah, the Von Reg should have damage on it, shouldn't it?
Von Reg should have damage from...
Yeah, it should have 2 damage on it.
The overwhelm.
No, you're totally right. Yeah. Interesting. Maybe a little bit more misdamage there too, but yeah, you're absolutely right. The attack that was done last turn that killed the last red 5 should have left 2 damage on the Von Reg's interceptor.
Yeah, and while it's obviously not going to kill Von Reg's interceptor, it should at least be done because every little bit helps.
It would get it a little bit closer. Like, I don't think it's something that's going to end up being something that impacts the game to a huge degree, because there's just so much health on that interceptor. Even if it had 4 damage on it right now, it'd still have 5 left, which is beyond the range of a open fire or something like that,
Right.
And there's another probably just 10 to base, right? Oh no, it's going to be 8 to base because there's no
overwhelming barrage, but this is still
lethal on board.
Still lethal on board, so without the...
Oh, he's got the OB in hand. All right, well, there it is.
This is the overwhelming barrage anyway. All right.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so that's going to do it. I'm going to send us back to the camera here for us, and that'll do it. So it's going to be Davy Jones taking the series 2-0 against Lightsaber Larry, and overwhelming barrage is a good card. What can you say? But at the same time, that first game especially was definitely more on the tight side, where you see that Leia, with the right cards, can push out a lot of damage. I just think consistency wise, it just wasn't there this time for Larry. It just didn't seem like he had what he needed to in his hand in that second game.
Well, I would almost put this just down to, like, if I'm being honest, if you're lightsaber Larry, I think you can hang your head high because your opponent had exactly what they needed both times. The tank was such a massive play because it put you off potentially deploying your Leia the way you wanted to. Now, you did still end up deploying her, and then they just ignored it and went face anyway, but it was such a presence that it very much altered the game plan of Larry, right? They started playing around the tank instead of trying to play through the tank and do those things. So game one, I think the tank was an all-star. Yes, we saw the overwhelming in the hand at the end as well. Barrage did everything that it's supposed to do. Game two, not much you could do in that situation. Overall, I think that the Vader deck looked good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fragile, right? I mean, if someone has a lot of removal, they get rid of all your ships, you just never get going. You just have games where you do 0 damage, right? But in the aggro matchups especially, I think you can run into a lot of things like this where you can attack, you can make them trade into you, and then once you get to those flip turns, once you get to those OB turns, it gets really, really hard to stop. So really fun to see in action. Davy Jones, once again, goes to 2 wins in a row here on Conquer the Cave. So we'll have to see next time around if he's able to hold on to the throne or not. But any parting words before we close this one out?
Yes, I think that if you are playing a red deck, you should at least be considering bombing run in your sideboard, because the Vader deck does look strong. I've been seeing, just like you mentioned, right? It posts some decent results at events, but also that's a card that is flexible and you can use in other matchups. So while I don't think it's an auto include, it's something that you should at least consider, especially if that's a bad matchup for you.
Yeah, and it seems like all permutations of Vader are fairly viable too. We've seen some Vader Cunning have success. Obviously, without Triple Dark Raid, that's kind of gone back to the drawing board. Red is strong, and then blue. I would say most of the Vader lists that did well in Richmond ended up being Vader blue lists. So that Sentinel, the Iden Versio pilot card, making a big difference there too. So certainly a fun leader build around. Certainly fun to see. Certainly fun to cast these games as well, so hopefully you enjoyed them as well. Check out our Discord, join that if you want a chance to play on Conquer the Cave. Otherwise, check out our Patreon as well. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But thanks for watching once again. This has been Conquer the Cave, and we will see you next time.